is a Holy Spirit. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Soul Work. I'm your host, Jeni Cousins, and thank you to everybody who tunes in each and every week on Shaw TV. And on tonight, I do have a guest, as I always do, and we will be taking calls after we have our little commercial break. And that number for you to write down is 403-539-6710. And on tonight's show, as I usually always say, I wanted to have this guest on because it was under really unique circumstances how I connected with him. And as we start chatting, you're going to understand and see why. And I want to welcome Joshua Wheeler to the show. Thank you, Joshua, for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. And you're, you know, just by what you have to offer and just who you are, I've learned so much. Even more about you, you can help so many people out there.
Well, I really hope so. I mean, my whole reason for being here is just to sort of help people reach out, find the help that they need, whether it's coming through somebody like myself or reaching out and just finding whatever support they can wherever it is they happen to be.
Yes. Can you share with us a little bit about where you're from and what actually brought you here to Calgary?
Well, my story, I guess, getting to Calgary was a bit of a long run. I'll give you a brief history of sort of how I came up and how I ended up in the field in which I am. I grew up in Halifax. I'm originally from Newfoundland. Life was, you know, fairly rough for us, just being in a single home. For the first part of my life, I was molested for a severe amount of it, and very roughly. The only reason why things didn't further get investigated was because the actual boy that had been doing it to me had actually committed suicide himself, and his father did, and then his mother did shortly after. During this process, I became a drug addict at a very young age, somewhere around 10, 11 years old. And so I lived most of my teenage years doing things that I probably shouldn't be doing, but it was just all I ever knew how to do, which I'm sure a lot of people watching this are going to be able to relate to. At this point, when I was just about 19 years old, what ended up happening was that some stressors ended up happening within inside of my body. I had a stroke, I had some seizures, I had a whole bunch of things happen that no one could really understand why. They broke my tests all across North America, couldn't really tell me, you know, what was happening, where, you know, it came all of a sudden and then it left all of a sudden and no one knew why. But at the end, what they virtually said was that I was never to walk, talk, or think properly again. So virtually what ended up happening was when that I actually came out of the hospital, left me with a head full of clarity. And what I noticed was that the whole way in which I was living, the moral values, you know, the neighborhoods that I felt most comfortable in probably weren't the best places, and something needed to change. So I took a direct 180. There were no more drugs, there was no more booze, there was no more bad people in my life. I ended up getting on an airplane, coming out here to Calgary, and, well, actually Edmonton first off, to live my life as a chef. Within a matter of a couple of years, I had all these health concerns that I really wasn't addressing, even though these doctors wanted me to get the help, but I was young and just not listening. I ended up putting on, you know, close to 130 pounds and was left in severe, you know, health problems. I was overly stressed out, overly anxiety. I didn't get any of the help from, you know, the stressors that I had from growing up. Because like a lot of us will know, if you come from any sort of poverty-stricken place or any place that's, you know, over in, you know, the Middle East, and you're just getting here over the last few years, there's a lot of different things that we're trying to emotionally and physically deal with. What ended up happening was I ended up meeting this great man named Mike, and he worked at a GNC. And so I had about 140 pounds I had to lose to become healthy, and this guy sort of took me underneath his wing. So at that point I had stopped being a chef, and I'd really gotten into the health world. And what loved me about the health world was how healthy it was, and how happy everybody was, and, you know, how motivated people were to actually achieve things in life and just live a better quality of life. As years went on, I started taking more and more certificates. I worked for companies like General Nutrition Center for years, Herbal Magic for years. I then went to be a personal trainer at Good Life for years and years and years. At that point, I really started shifting more towards the spiritual side of things and sort of how we think and grow rich. Why we think the way we do, why we behave the way we behaved. Because what I noticed was that even though I had gotten my own personal health in line. I was at a good weight. You know, I felt healthy. I felt happy, lots of energy, had a good job, everything else. I was still suffering with something that I didn't quite know what it was. And what I noticed was that all the clients I had were suffering from the same thing as well. It's like some people could hit a certain point and then they would hit a wall and they didn't know why. And so as I started digging deeper and deeper and deeper, I really started getting into people like Anthony Robbins and Jim Rohn and all these great people that are all about, you know, how we think, why we think, and getting past the experiences that we were in. So at this point, I had just finished up my associate's degree in exercise science through the International Sports Science Association, and I started taking certificates through Anthony Robbins. I've done every one of his programs, including his 100 core intervention strategic coaching. Really? So virtually what this was a year-long coaching program to be able to help people that might be under severe distress and anxiety of suicidal thoughts or whatever it might happen to be. At this point, I did own a gym for quite some time, and they called me the exercise therapist. So you would come to see me either for physical training or maybe structure in life. I would help you manage things, get your house organized, get your kids in line, you know, whatever happens to be. A lot of the times I would have clients that would have children, and their children would have ADHD or dyslexia or something along those lines, and they would need proper nutrition or exercise plan to help get everything evened out instead of just medications. So virtually my whole life up to this point has been, you know, life experiences of different traumas and traumatic events to, you know, learning to teach other people, you know, the kind of the funks that they're in. And in the whole process, you know, I've got a good look of being able to see about how our Canadian system actually works and focuses its attention. So I've been able to come through the system myself, get out of the system myself, and to be able to see where they're really doing a great job and where it is where we really need to start doing some improvements.
Because it was so, you know, unique how we connected, because Christmas time for me, I had a very suicidal friend. So for me, that was my Christmas. It was a full-time job dealing with that every day, you know, and it was getting to the point, I'm like, oh my God, maybe I should phone the suicide hotline and get some information and advice of how I could actually help her more. So, and then when I just sat back and I surrendered it, so I go on Facebook and then there's you all of a sudden, and I'm like, oh my God, right? And I thought you know, you'd be perfect to have on the show, you know, because especially after everything that you've been through. And I know that you've even had a near-death experience.
Yes.
Yourself, can you share with our viewers about that?
So when I was, like I was saying briefly earlier, when I was just about 19 years old, I literally was sitting in my house one day, and then all of a sudden it felt like something sharp was in my stomach. And I was like, well, I'm not good, but I might be okay. And then an hour later, I was literally laying on the floor in so much pain, like I had no idea what was going on. And so eventually, from what the doctors was telling me, was that I had a seizure, but I didn't realize. Now, I was being a stubborn kid, not knowing much about health, figuring I'm just going to wait this out. It's like the flu. I'll be all good in a couple of days. Well, a couple of days went by. I ended up having a stroke. I had some really severe seizures, and they had to keep me asleep in the hospital. I believe it was for 8 days. And during those 8 days, they had to get my mother to sign, you know, waivers stating that if we give this poor guy any more drugs and he dies, it's not our fault. I kept waking up. Now, with inside of there, I'm definitely thinking that I was having, you know, a near-death experience, because I was in and out, they were saying, from like, you know, being unconscious to conscious. And what I truly remember from that one experience was being happy. I really remember for a period of time not seeing any sort of lights, not really seeing any sort of people, but I remember being extraordinarily happy and peaceful for the first time ever, because my whole life, even now, I'm very intense, but I was very, very angry as a child, and as a youth I was just very rageful. And then I remember feeling peace for the first time, and when I came back, it was like a dramatic shock. It was like, before I initially take that step to come back to consciousness, I was able to see sort of everything that I had done, everything that was happening around me, and, you know, sort of the steps that I was supposed to be taking to get ahead of to where I was, right? And when I had come out of it, it was like I wasn't even the same person. You know, anybody that sort of knew me from before, you know, I was me, but I wasn't quite me. You know, I was in search of different values, in search of different energies, and life has truly been different since then. Like you were saying, you know, all of a sudden you needed somebody like me to show up in your life, and now all of a sudden I was there. And like, you know, me and you will have common agreements that things in life that you need, even though you haven't made any plans for them, will just show up there because you truly needed them at that point in time,
you do.
right?
Yeah, you do.
It's like that. The teacher will appear when the student is ready.
Yes, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had a few near-death experiences myself too, so I know exactly what that is like, you know. And when you've been through all of that, you realize how profound that those experiences are. And because of life's experiences, it moves you up to who you're supposed to be. So that way, for instance, if somebody comes to see me, you know, when I have a client, they can throw anything at me that they've been through. Just already put the checkbox in that box before you even come see me, because I've already been there.
Yeah, that's right.
So you can help that person even more so. So if somebody wanted to come and see you or talk to you more or get more information, what's the best way for them to do that?
Right now, the best way is definitely going to be Facebook. You're going to be able to find me on there at Joshua David Wheeler. Currently, I am in the mix with a new team of supporters, and we are getting a business and an office and a website and stuff put up here very, very soon. So please keep an eye out for that. Like I said, this does take a bit of work, and where this is my second business, I'm definitely making sure that we go at it the right way this time.
That's wonderful. And just to let the viewers know that Joshua, of course, is staying the whole show, and our phone lines are going to be open after this commercial. So give us a call, Calgary, and you can ask both myself and Joshua questions. That number is 403-539-6710. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Good evening, everyone. This is Soul Work, and I'm your host, Jeni Cousins, for those of you who are just tuning in. And we are live here on Shaw TV, and we have just opened those phone lines, Calgary, so give us a call, 403-539-6710. And my guest tonight is Joshua Wheeler, and it's been extraordinarily interesting speaking to you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I mean, there's so much about you that could really help and work with people, and I know you're going to be working with, you know, the crises line and all of that. So what is mental health, just to give kind of a little brief interview, because we have a person on hold, but just give a little.
So mental health is really, it's a big umbrella, and it's really taken off over the last 10 years, and it's really gotten a stigma along with it. Within reality, over the last 30 or 40 years, we've been putting a real effort as a community to try to figure out what exactly is happening with the way we live our life today, and with people who are autistic or schizophrenic or bipolar or whatever happens to be, like, what is actually going on? Is it a chemical imbalance? Is it a hormonal imbalance? You know, is it something that's, you know, that's just there for no apparent reason at all? So what we have to understand is that mental health is going to be an umbrella that embodies the psychological aspects of your life, the emotional aspects of your life, the health aspects of your life, like your physical fitness, your nutrition, to the social well-being of how your life is. So, you know, are you interacting well with people at work? Do you have friends? Do you have family? Have you locked yourself in your room all by yourself, away from your family, away from everything because you can't handle anything? You know, are you secluding yourself? That is going to be the number one thing, whether it is your child, whether it is your partner in life, whether it is your dog, your cat, I don't care. As soon as anybody breaks away from everybody and starts to sort of sit back, you know that there's something wrong there. So with breaking down, you know, this umbrella, there's really a couple different categories we can put things in to sort of group things together, so we're not here talking about 100 different things. The most popular ones are going to be stress or anxiety, and they're going to come together as a group, okay? Now, everybody in their life is going to experience stress, anxiety at some point in time. We've all been through schools and had exams. We've all had dates. We've all had work, etc., etc. But it's when it starts to become a real underlining factor in your life. Some people could have severe eating disorders. Like if you're 50, 60, 100 pounds overweight, I'm going to say that there's probably something emotionally wrong that just hasn't, from a past experience that hasn't been dealt with. That's why you're eating the way you are, or under eating, whatever it happens to be. It could show up as OCD, always wanting to clean and making sure that everything is just neat and perfect so that you can have some sort of, internal control over what's going on. And then another group is going to be broken down into depression and bipolar. And bipolar will be broken up into two, bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, okay? So, like I said, just like anxiety, everybody in the world is going to experience depression at some point in their life.
Exactly.
Regardless if it's just a little bit here and there or a whole lot, you can't really get away from it. But you sort of learn to get some coping skills as we get older. But it's when it becomes a factor on your life, like when you're calling into work sick all the time, you can't get out of bed and get dressed. You're going home and you're doing nothing but eating potato chips and cake and stuff. It's not because it tastes good. It's because you desperately need that sugar, to get the hormones and stuff going in your body so that you'll start to feel good again.
But we do have a caller too.
Yes, okay, sorry. Yes, by all means.
No, that's great. That's wonderful because it gives people just a little bit of a background, about some of the illness anyways.
Yes.
And I bet you our next caller here, Violet, can probably relate to some type of stress or anything. And you have a question for us, Violet.
Yes, I just wonder if you have any sense of where my life is going.
Well, it really depends what you're opened for. When we're kind of in that situation, when we're uncertainty of where do we go from this point on, that's
right.
when you have to really have that, space and time for yourself to really, allow the soul to speak. What do you want changed in your life? If there's areas that you're not happy with, you have to really make the change with it. You're the only person that can do it, right?
Okay.
But I just keep on hearing, actually, the 21st of April, for some reason, coming in for you. And I just really think that around that time frame period, things are going to open up for you a lot better. And I just see you being a lot more happy. But any areas in your life, you got to really fix it,
Okay.
Yeah. So be open to change, and we got to put certain circumstances on the side and get ourselves back happy and back grounded again, because we can end up, depressed, even with, Joshua, what he was talking about, different, mental illnesses. We can get, create a mental illness for ourselves if we keep ourselves locked up, can't we?
Oh, 100%. The most common one we'll hear about will be bipolar 2 disease, and typically all that is PTSD mixed with a lot of the times a chemical imbalance from either being, too into drugs or too into alcohol for too much period of time. So that is something that can initially leave with some life changes. Yeah,
it can. But I would actually get out a little bit more, Violet, because it just really feels that you really need, to get more in touch with outside, nature, little walks here and there, not doing a marathon or anything like that. But the more, you get outside and do little walks and, breathe in, it almost feels like your lungs are a little kind of held back a little bit, kind of clogged a bit. So get outside and really breathe in that fresh air and the sun. Take advantage of that, because you need more sun in your pranic energy in your body. And you'll feel a lot better. So hang in there. Hang in there and you'll be okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. And that number, Calgary, is 403-539-6710 for anybody who would like to give Joshua or myself a call to get some clarity on certain things. So if someone, let's say, if you saw a friend of yours, let's say, that was, down and depressed, what signs would you see, let's say, or what would you suggest to them?
Well, everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different. Most of my friends are pretty open with me, just me being who I am and me being around. So whenever they're feeling like they're stepping over the edge, they don't have any problem sort of coming to speak with me. But like I was saying, if you're seeing anybody really secluding themselves, hygiene goes out the window is a big one. but you'll notice their attitudes will change. Things like if you've got teenagers and all of a sudden your teenager goes from being like really happy and bubbly and jumping all around to all of a sudden the complete opposite.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's not them trying to be expressive. I'm just saying you might want to start paying attention to what's actually happening in their lives and seeing if there's not something you can do for it. Like you were just saying to the last lady, you know, being social is a huge, huge aspect of mental illness in today's world.
Yeah.
So it's about trying to find groups, trying to find friends, being uncomfortable, you know, as much as we don't want to be uncomfortable.
No, exactly. You got to get out more because there's, you know, certain people that will kind of lock themselves up, you know, and with the economy right now, you know, of course it has changed everybody's moods and, you know, their energy. So it's going out for walks, keeping yourself, you know, distracted, even volunteering somewhere, you know, SPCA or anything like that. And we do have another call for us.
Perfect.
On hold, and that would be Melanie. Melanie, you have a question for us? Hello? Melanie will be on.
Hi, it's Melanie.
Hi, Melanie. How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys tonight?
Really good. And you have a question for us?
I do. As you're talking about mental health, I just wonder where sort of ADD or ADHD fits into that. And just in the respect that, you know, lately I've been having just an incredible inability to focus and concentrate, and it's making me anxious and nervous. So I'm just kind of wondering what you get a sense about that.
That's a perfect question. I was actually, if anybody could have asked a question, that one would have been it. I'll try to tie it up as quickly as possible, though. So for ADHD, ADD, or dyslexia, they're all going to be on the same spectrum of the brain. So we're just going to call it ADHD for short. So what we're finding with people, whether it's children or adults that have ADHD, is that we're all experiencing the same symptoms. We're all getting it from birth. This isn't something that just happens later on in life. You're having it right from the get-go. You're never going to grow out of it. As you get older, you might be able to build coping skills to deal with it. But what we have found is when we've done studies over the last 20 years, is when we're finding people who are severe addicts, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's hard drugs, everybody has an underlying disorder of ADHD. When we're finding a lot of people that are being called bipolar, we're finding that they have an underlying disorder of ADHD. So at first we really got to figure out, you know, what do we have it or not? Because with a lot of people, maybe you're not getting the right exercise, you're not getting the right diet, and if you're finding you are exercising regularly and you are having diet regularly, but you're still having like brain fog, you're not able to concentrate for a long period of time, or if you do, you blank out. You know, like if people are talking to you, all of a sudden you're focused on something else. My very first step is that if you are an adult, so like 20 years of age and older, and if you've never tried any sort of medications and you've never really been to the doctor to see any doctor for it, I think that would be my very first step. Get a hold of your family doctor and get a referral over to go get actual testing. I'm not quite sure what it's like here in Alberta, but I know if you're in school, I'm pretty sure the government pays for it, but if not, it's still only a very, you know, brief amount of money what it costs, and I actually believe Access Mental Health might pay for it if you're having any sort of extreme stress and stuff in your life. So if you want a direct answer, I'm not going to be able to give you one. My suggestion would be to get some more exercise, to try to eat a little better, make an appointment with your doctor to get in there to figure out what this is, and pick up a book called Scattered Minds by Dr. Gabor Mate. Dr. Gabor Mate is a doctor of, I believe, close to 40 years worth of experience. He's one of my personal heroes, I guess what you would call him. He currently works out of Vancouver. He works at a strip down there that's really well known for, you know, their addicts and their homeless and that nature. He's written many books on people with ADHD, with people with, you know, addiction disorders. So what I'm saying is that ADHD a lot of the time is the culprit that's getting us for a lot of things, and it's a very, very easy fix. Like I know for myself personally, I have ADHD, and as soon as, you know, I got the right medications and the right doses with the right exercise and everything else, my world changed. Yeah. My entire world changed.
Because Himalayan lamps, the Himalayan salt lamps, those actually help.
Yes.
You know, to put in the house. And I just, you know, I just really even feel even with you, Melanie, it's just, you know, because of certain circumstances, you're a very old soul and you're very sensitive to energy. So any little thing you can pick up on that energy, which will immediately affect you. It goes right through you. So you might find that, you know, you might be a little bit OCD at times, you know, and that's just, and that's, yeah, and that's just kind of stress related and everything like that. And I just feel with you, like, just kind of let things go. And there's certain people around you that you need to clear out. You need to clear out and put yourself around people that accept you as is, that respect you and are there for you unconditionally, right? So just different people take a look at that, because I kind of feel like little prickles on you. It's like a cactus that you just need to kind of pull them out like that, and then you're going to feel a lot better. And you're going to have a good year, actually. I'm feeling a really good year coming for you.
Oh, great. That's good to hear.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I find that I am incredibly sensitive, and certainly sensitive to, you know, I can't even watch the news or anything like that.
Yeah, and I don't watch the news.
Yeah, and Gabor Mate is one of my favorite go-to people as well, when the body says no, and, you know, so his work is great. So I like the idea of getting, you know, looking at getting a diagnosis as well. I think that might be helpful.
The diagnosis really helps, and what we find a lot of the times too is that people that are having symptoms that may seem like ADHD or bipolar or something in between, a lot of the times it's a mineral and vitamin deficiency. So even picking yourself up like a good greens drink or a multivitamin or something helps a lot too.
And thank you for calling, Melanie. I'm already getting the wrap-up sign here already.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you both. Really appreciate it. Love your show.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you very much for calling in. And I want to thank Joshua for coming on, because I know that you've touched a lot of people. I can feel that with you. And it was funny. No wonder I saw this kind of genie kind of energy beside you, as I told you earlier, right? So, you know, I highly recommend Joshua. Definitely.
I appreciate that. It was nice coming on.
Yes. Oh, you're very welcome. And we'll have you on again, because there's so much more that, you know, you could talk about and that you could say. And especially now with the way things are, we need people like you. And I'm your host, Jeni Cousins. We are live on Shaw TV here. And all the shows are on YouTube also, by the way, Calgary. If you've missed any of them, look under Jeni Cousins. Good night, everyone. See you next Wednesday night.
The proceeding was a community access program. Shaw is proud to support local producers and share local voices, ideas, and opinions. For more information, please visit shawtv.ca. Opinions expressed in this programming do not necessarily reflect the views of Shaw or its employees.
"2016 marks the 25th anniversary of celebrating business at the Alberta Business Awards of Distinction. Hosted by the Alberta Chambers of Commerce at the beautiful Renaissance Edmonton Airport Hotel, this exciting event brings a diverse representation of businesses from all around the province. The Alberta Business Awards of Distinction recognize businesses and organizations that have demonstrated outstanding achievement and contribution to their community while having developed business acumen and management practices to ensure long-term sustainability.